Thank you very much for your kind introduction. The project I'm going to be discussing is based on a CASDAR project called Bâtiment C42, which is managed by Ifip. So what lies behind that acronym? Bâtiment stands for bâtiment, meaning building. We're mostly looking at fattening units, and we try to reconcile 4 main themes, including animal welfare, the environment, work ergonomics, and consumer demands. Now, this is a sociological study that I'm going to introduce to you. It's about perception of farmers in the face of changes in buildings, in practices, in equipment within the buildings. So we want to create a typology to better assist breeders, farmers, depending on the level of sensitivity to these different themes. So 2 different methods were used. First of all, semi-directed interviews, and it is by design that we talked to farmers across the country with different production methods. What do I mean by that? I'm referring to the relationship with buildings. We had conventional farmers using fully slatted floor and closed buildings, and then we talked to alternative farmers where the building is considered as ancillary to their production method. So we had innovative farmers who used different buildings with or without straw bedding, with or without access to the outdoors. So 22 farmers were surveyed. In addition, we visited farms. Those were technical visits, the goal of which was to visit 30 farms who had a proactive approach when it came to implementing solutions in reference to the 4 E's I talked about: animal welfare, environment, ergonomics at work, and consumer requirements. So we wanted to know what their motivations were, what the obstacles were when it came to changing the way they do their jobs. So based on our discussions with those farmers, particularly the semi-directed interviews, there's a bunch of keywords that come out. 3 keywords in particular came up several times: well-being at work, ergonomics, and economics. And based on that, we created diversity criteria. These are systems that help position farmers in relation to different profiles. First, we had farmers who were more driven by animal well-being, whereas other farmers cared about their own well-being. And then changes in practices, buildings, etc. And then we had 4 different profiles: pioneers, optimizers, reformists, and conservatives. We'll explain that in a minute. So what is a conservative farmer? Well, they believe that French regulation is already well designed and helps you produce quality meat. So in other words, regulations are good, so until they force me to do something else, there's no reason I should change a thing. I'll stick to the way I do things. But reformist is a different profile. They believe that in addition to regulations, there are societal trends, and sometimes you have to change things, not because it's a regulatory requirement, but you want to keep in touch with society, and so you'll make changes. And then you have optimizers. It's pretty much the same analysis, but in terms of implementation, things are different. I want my farm to keep updated. So I will try and be part of a business model so I can be more comfortable promoting that business model vis-a-vis the general public. And then we have forerunners, pioneers, and they believe that we need to think outside the box, reinvent a farming model which is more in line with my own personal beliefs or my own personal needs. So 4 diversity criteria, and we identified 6 different farmer profiles. Let me tell you a little bit more. In the upper right-hand corner, you will see the farmer profile in relation to these 6 diversity criteria. Now, the conformist or the regulatory conformist, they believe that these are farms where you find all 3 livestock systems: fully slatted floor buildings, buildings with straw bedding, organic farming, and buildings with access to the outdoors. So basically, for that category, they don't want anyone to interfere with their production facilities. So from an economic point of view, they have a poor perception of consumers. So yes, of course, we can always do more. But will consumers be willing to pay? That's the question. Even if we invest more and change things to make better meat, will consumers be willing to pay? So they believe in performance and pragmatism, and they believe that current production methods are both virtuous and competitive, so why change it if it works? So you have two mirror profiles, red and blue. By and large, you can interpret this in two different ways. Current trends can be interpreted in two different ways. The only place where they agree is that they both distrust the general public and they don't communicate more. So you have the cautious carers who are more driven by animal welfare and they prefer to use straw bedding. And then you have efficient ergonomists who believe more in the farmer's well-being and they prefer slatted floors in their buildings. So the cautious caretakers will say, yes, I want to upgrade my building, but I can't do it overnight, so I'm going to do this gradually. So they tend to forget themselves and they prioritize their animals, and so they are discreet and cautious, and they care more about their own animals than themselves. On the other side, you have the efficient ergonomists, and they believe that there can be no farming if you don't have farmers. So they need systems that will attract the younger generation so that you can pass on your farm to. So they believe in ergonomics, they believe in performance and technology. Now, what's really interesting regarding both profiles is that they use the same keywords. When we talk to them, they both talk about light, the importance of light and the importance of comfort in farming. But the first profile will say lighting should benefit my animals so they could be comfortable. But the other profile will say, no, I want light so I can recruit people, farm hands, so that they'll stick around, so I can have a comfortable working condition, so I can recruit people and hold on to my teams. Now, diversified testers, they reveal all possibilities. So as you can see at the bottom, these are farmers who know fully slatted floor buildings because that's what they use, and they have closed buildings. But they do try new things. So in that regard, they're adventurous. They're willing to try and set up, a sleeping area, a little bit of straw bedding, access to the outdoors. So they're trying to get their hands, they're trying to practice with those new techniques just in case things change in the future. So they pay close attention to environmental innovation because they know fully slatted floor type buildings inside and out. And we know and they know that the environmental downside of that. I'm not here to judge. And so they believe a high level of technology will help put together a showcase that will help them move forward on all four fronts. Now, we have leaders and strategists. They're in pretty much the same position as the third profile. So yes, they use closed buildings, fully slatted floors. They test new solutions, but they wanted to be part of business models so they could make money off it. So this is a reference to the A-Team. I don't know whether you used to watch the A-Team back in the 1980s. Remember what Hannibal used to say? I love it when a plan comes together. So you may think that risk-taking is significant, but at the end of the day, they calculate absolutely everything and they leave nothing to chance. So they created their business model. They're comfortable communicating about it. They are in the driver's seat of their own communication plan about their own project. And lastly, the fourth profile. Communicators and storytellers. As I said, they want to think outside the box, color outside the lines, and usually they have a pretty story to tell around their own pig farm. Usually it's driven by animal welfare, sustainable development. As I said before, the building matters less than the rest. No fully slatted floors, much more bed, much more straw bedding. They base themselves on short supply lines, and usually they believe in high-end quality meat for 5-star restaurants, that kind of customers. So, discussion and conclusions. See, the profiles I referenced are fictitious. Bear in mind that I'm not judging. There's no value judgment whatsoever. Every profile has its own upsides and downsides. Because those profiles are fictitious, you may have farmers who lie at the crossroads between two profiles. What's important is that based on a farmer's practices and experience, their profile may switch over time. So you have a life path or a career path, and you will have farmers who will shift from one profile to another, or maybe backtrack and go back to who they used to be when they were younger. By way of conclusion, we have a brochure that we're putting together, and it will contain all of the results that I'm presenting to you today. And it'll be available by the end of the year, and we want it to be useful in the field. It'll contain lots of information, particularly language, so each profile can better communicate with the general public. That's the first part. Secondly, in connection with the results of the project, it'll help you better understand the motivations and fears and concerns of farmers so they can get better assistance. Final conclusion, many thanks to my two co-authors, Jeanne Côté, who did all the technical work, and she's the primary on this work, and Elsa Delago, many thanks to her for her help with the methodology. And all the farmers, of course, many thanks for visiting with us. Thank you for your attention.